Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about workplace violence. Violence by one employee, in this case the defendant, Dwight Schrute, against a fellow employee, my client, Roy Anderson, that occurred on October 10th of 2023 right here in Scranton, New York. I'm going to establish this and prove this to you by a preponderance of the evidence. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what you're going to learn about in the course of this case is that this defendant, Dwight Schrute, he has a particular interest in violence, in weapons, and in preparing to utilize those weapons in his very office space. You will learn that in the course of this case, Dwight Schrute, he planned to use violence against people in that office by peppering the space around him with weapons. And not weapons like his fists, weapons that include swords, knives, sais, nunchucks, bows and arrows, brass knuckles, tasers. The defendant, Dwight Schrute, planned for and intended to use these weapons against people in his office. And it turns out that on October 10th, 2023, it was my client's turn, Roy Anderson, to be the victim of this defendant's intent to use that violence. How am I going to show you? How am I going to prove to you that the defendant had these weapons and had that intent? Well, it turns out that in that office, a documentary film crew had been planning to film a documentary and had filmed several things over the course of years in that office space. They caught this incident about this case on their documentary film cameras. And they caught the defendant speaking about how he liked to put weapons all over the office, how he intended on using that weapon if he felt it was necessary. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to learn that he felt it was necessary not just when violence exists, but whenever he just has the intent to want to hurt somebody. How am I going to show that to you? You are going to see in the course of this case that another employee, not my client, a whole different employee named Andrew Bernard, had come back from finishing anger management, had walked through the front door, stopped by Pam Beasley's receptionist desk, and announced himself to the office. At which point, having posed no risk to a soul, having raised no weapon, raised no alarm, threatened nobody, the defendant, Dwight Schrute, showing his intent, picked up pepper spray and sprayed Andrew Bernard right in the face, dropping him like a stone. That's the same intent that you're going to learn the defendant had on October 10th of 2023, when my client, Roy Anderson, who you will learn had some kind of a love triangle dispute with a fellow employee named Jim Halpert. You will learn that Roy Anderson, who has a right to have a dispute with a fellow employee, has a right to use his words with the fellow employee. And that gives nobody the right to use violence against him, entered that very same door that Andrew Bernard had entered earlier. The very same door that I talked about earlier, the very same door that led you to the desk area where Pam Beasley sits at reception. And when Roy Anderson was approximately the same place where Andrew Bernard was, he said, "Jim." And you will see this incident yourself. You will see how Roy Anderson, my client, then approached Jim, at which point the defendant did the same thing he did with Andrew Bernard. He attacked an unarmed man. He attacked a person who threatened nobody. He attacked a person who posed no risk to anybody. And he did it the same exact way he did it with Andrew Bernard. He sprayed him in the face with pepper spray. And you will know that this was not an accident. This was not a mistake. You will know his intent by his own words, because he speaks about why he put these weapons in the office. He shows us when he's willing to use these weapons. And at the close of this case, after we've had a chance to show you all the evidence in this case and reviewed it with you, I'm going to come back and ask you to hold the defendant, Dwight Schrute, liable for his workplace violence, for the unacceptable use of weapons against a fellow employee who posed no risk of danger. And you'll do that by holding him liable in the verdict sheet in this case for a civil assault and battery. Thank you.